do you guys have any sort of judgment about dancers who are like more flamboyant than other dancers? Is it more like, oh, it's all fun, like everybody has their own thing, or is there like a preference that dancers say this is a better style because it's more friendly, let's say? Is there such a thing?
The intricate dynamics in social events, in social dance event, partner dance events. I'm talking about forró, I'm talking about tango. These are some of the topics that we talked in this podcast. I was a guest of Elizabeta in her podcast for her YouTube channel related to tango. She's a dancer, an instructor, and an influencer. We had a very interesting conversation about similarities and differences between these two different cultures, these two dance styles from South America, tango and forró.
Forró is danced not in a line of dance, right? It's danced in a slot, meaning like, do you travel in a line of dance, or do you dance kind of like in one place?
This is a very interesting topic, and I want to hear from your side how, because I don't know how tango works in the dance floor. In forró is a very organic, which means very fluid and sometimes unorganized dance.
So you bring in some ecstatic dance into it too, huh?
Yes, there is a lot of, if you go to parties, the room is not walking.
It's not walking.
Going around.
It's in place.
It's not walking. It's in
Gotcha.
place. But the dance is not that we have like salsa, you have your own line.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit, we make it work with the space we have. In the sense,
Gotcha.
for example, I'm here in Brazil now. I'm not in New York. So I went to a bunch of parties here, and sometimes we have parties which are very, very crowded. Or even in New York, if you go, the places we have for sometimes are tiny bars.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have space to do a lot of turns and walk a lot. So you have to be in your own little space and then find the rooms to go here and there. And it's interesting how the challenges of the dance floor also influence the moves we do in the dance floor. There is one move that became traditional in one particular style of forró, which is called trava, which is like a break. And we have a movement which is a walk. So the trava, it evolved as a way to fix a walk that could not happen. So like we are walking there, oops, we have to stop because someone's going over there. So it's a dance that you see people trying to find the space and walk around, but not in an organized way that everybody's going the same direction. Does it make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's fascinating. And I think the thinking behind tango technique is similar, but tango does belong on a what's called a ronda, which is the line of dance. So it's counterclockwise. So it's a walking dance in its essence, where people are walking together, and as it so happens, people will not be walking at the same pace altogether. So when you cannot progress along the line of dance, you have to be able to dance in place. And that's how the vocabulary develops, is with this same idea that you're describing, where it's like, okay, there's nowhere to go forward. So I need to create circular movements and different types of tricks so that I can continue walking, but I'm walking in the same spot around an axis. So the form of the dance is sort of like inside your body, everything is organized around a spiral. And then you and your partner are spiraling around each other. And then the whole group of dancers, as they're spiraling around each other, are also spiraling around the room. So it's this
so interesting.
expanding spiral. And all of the vocabulary that tango has is sort of in response to that. And I think what's fascinating, what I'm hearing from you about this dance form that's quite young, is that there's a similarity between dance forms and how they evolve. And it's very much kind of the same ingredients. You know, you have music and you have people and you have a limited amount of space. And the dance has to sort of consolidate between what you want to show in the music with who your partner is and how much space you have.
It's interesting you're talking about the spiral. I use different words, but I say that in forró, especially in the style that I dance from my region in Brazil, is a very, I say that we orbit around each other.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And so we're always doing this and trying to find space. So if I would try to do like my hand representation here of a couple dancing, we would be in a place, orbiting together, walking here, walking there, walking here, walking there, orbiting again, stop, orbit a little bit to the other side and orbit again, find a space here, let's walk here. And then stay here,
Gotcha.
blah, blah, blah. We find a space here and we walk over here.
So I think tango dancers would probably lose their minds in that kind of environment because everything in tango is about the line of dance. You're not allowed to veer out of the line of dance. A lot of the
Wow.
issues around the culture of the social dance is very much emphasis on being very cognizant of people next to you. You can't go opposite the line of dance. You shouldn't like switch lanes. You shouldn't pass dancers. You know, all of that is part of good floor craft that each dancer has to sort of learn.
I don't know how is in tango, but I feel that also the dynamics between the dancers in the dance floor very, very much. In the sense that you have people who are just enjoying being together and listen to music, doing a very simplistic dance, and they're almost just in place, playing with the rhythm, improvising a little bit, and turn here and turn there, and they're same place. And then you have other dancers who like to travel. They like to walk here and then find a space and then change and then walk there and do other things. And you find other places who, similar to salsa, like to turn a lot. So they take space. So they're turning, orbiting around, but they're doing all these flashes using a lot of space. So when you look at the dance floor in Forró, it's a little bit chaotic. So if you're joining the dance floor in tango and you position, you find, oh, I have a space. How do you join the dance floor? How do you find your place in the line?
Yeah. So what happens typically when you're entering the dance floor, the etiquette is for the leader to make contact with the leader that they're going to be dancing in front of. So the person coming up, you make eye contact and you wait for that person to nod. And then that's like a permission, like, yes, go ahead and go in. Now, obviously, that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes people just go in anywhere or they won't wait for that timing. But that's kind of the etiquette. You know, that's what people appreciate, that kind of manner. But that's typically how it's done.
It's so elegant.
Right.
You don't have all this courtesy.
There's a lot of that. Tango is very heavy on that. And that's one of the criticisms because it's not just the dance. There's a lot of social etiquette that's very different from any other dance. Like you're not allowed to ask someone to dance verbally. It has to be done through the practice of the cabeceo, which is this etiquette of locking eyes with somebody across the room. And if that person nods their head, like, so the leader will, look around the room, lock eyes with the potential follower. And if they nod their head, then that means yes. If they look away, that means a no. And then the leader is supposed to walk to meet the follower and walk them to the dance floor and then walk them back after. And you dance a tanda of songs, which is typically it's 4 songs. So it's a 4-song, either 3 or 4 songs. That's typically the tradition. And so that's about 10 to 12 minutes that you dance with someone. And so there's just a lot of that like pomp and circumstance around the dance that's part of the culture, that if you don't know what you're doing or if you come in and you just start asking people to dance verbally, like people are not going to dance with you. Yeah, it's interesting. And I was going to ask actually, do you guys have any sort of judgment about dancers who are like more flamboyant than other dancers? Is it more like, oh, it's all fun, like everybody has their own thing? Or is there like a preference that dancers say, this is a better style because it's more friendly, let's say? Is there such a thing?
I mean, I think there is. Usually, if you look, the dynamics of the dance floor you're talking about is very different in Forró. So, for example, usually if you go to parties, you're going to see there's a trend, especially in venues that have events every week and the same people come. Usually you see groups of people in parts of the venue.
I
So
see.
people who like
Okay.
to watch the show, they stay by the front of the stage and they look at the stage so people don't invite them to dance. And then at that moment, and you have sometimes a dance school that usually stays by the bar or whatever. And then this school, they like to do a lot of turns. So you look at this part of the room and you see people doing much more turns.
I
And other
see.
places you see people dancing much close together and doing footwork. So it depends preferences and groups of people.
So you're
Uh,
saying that in one event you'll have pockets of people of like-minded dancers gather, and so you end up with like little pockets of different types of musical exploration.
yes,
Gotcha.
I would agree with that. Yes, yes. And people tend to stay in their regions and not walk that much. So
Got it.
it's a very different. Also, the invitation to dance is very different. For me, it's fascinating to hear what you're talking about tango, because in one side of my mind, I'm saying, this is so elegant. This is so good. Because, for example, I saw some practices in the dance floor, which are common, that I don't think are very nice. Like a guy barely looking at someone in the eyes and then like kind of almost grabbing the hand of the follower, like, come dance with me.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would not fly in tango. That is just
yeah,
like absolutely. That's not
yeah,
even on the table.
yeah, yeah. So, for example, I think this is a very bad practice. A good practice would be, I would say, if I would recommend on my students or other people to do, is either look at the person in exactly what you said and wait for the person to make eye contact and say, hey, I'm interested in have some kind of interaction, or to talk before. So
Raphael,
you stand by the side and
who
you chat a little bit.
you could be the pioneer in Forro and introduce the practice of Capaceo. And 100 years from now, people are going to be debating whether Capaceo is a cruel joke or whether it's a very elegant practice, because that's really a lot of the conversation and difficulty is that practice is it's very difficult to do, to look someone in the eye, especially if they're a stranger, to hold the gaze, gaze for a couple of beats and then wait for that nod, right? But I was going to ask, so the way it is now, typically what happens if somebody wants to dance? They just come up and they just ask if you want to
Yeah, they
dance.
ask.
It's a verbal. Yeah, it's a verbal
Yeah,
ask.
it's verbal. I mean, all the things happen. I mean, I would say like a good practice would be to look people, but not in that formal way. It's more like I'm walking in the venue. I see you and I saw you dancing before. I say, oh, she's a good dancer. I want to dance with her. And I would like walk towards you, and then maybe I would wait to see if you look at me, and then I would go towards you and then say, hey, do you want to dance? And I would stand
Yeah,
my hand. Or
yeah.
maybe you didn't look at me, but I would like come side to you and say, hey, I just saw you dancing. You dance like wonderfully. I would love to invite you to dance. Would you dance?
Gotcha.
But I imagine that would be not acceptable in tango, right?
No, no, no. It's really the marker of how seasoned you are as a dancer in a way, socially, is how you do with the capaceo. Like
Wow.
it's such a marker of your experience. You know, if you go to Buenos Aires, even more so. Like Buenos Aires doesn't even they'll kick you out if you don't practice capaceo. But what I'm curious about in terms of how the dance works, so it's one song at a time. So you dance one song at a time. Do people dance multiple songs in a row? Does that happen?
There's a very interesting thing because you said you dance 4 songs and usually 12 minutes. In Forró, we have two different scenarios. One scenario is if there is a DJ, is one song at a time, and usually you finish the song and you say thank you, and then you ask someone else, or you invite the same person to dance again. Oh, can you want to dance another song or whatever?
Yeah.
But there are also bands that when they play, they link songs together. So they're not
It's
creating
like a
a
full
pause, which
tanda.
yes,
Yeah.
with no
Yeah.
pause. So the
Wow.
band continues. And some people like, but many people don't like it. The
Aha.
reason being, argument is that uh, if you like to dance with someone, it's very easy to, do you want to dance another song? And this will find the other person, oh, flattering, right? This person wants to dance more with me. This is wonderful. But in other hand, if you start dancing with someone and the dance doesn't match, you're not feeling really good, and you have another 12 minutes to dance and you cannot stop, or in the middle of the dance, they say, hey, sorry, thank you, I'm going to the restroom, or I don't want to dance with you anymore.
It's torture. It's torture. You're talking torture. And again, you're pointing out something that people talk about with tango, the problem that this tanda structure makes dancers very picky automatically. So if you have somebody coming off the street, people don't know you, and maybe you're a beginner, a lot of times the reason why it's so hard for them to get dances is because people don't know you, and it's like going to be 12 minutes. And especially for followers, if I'm a follower and a leader invites me and they're really bad, then for me, it's like 12 minutes of excruciating pain, perhaps. So people get really protective of themselves and their time. They want to wait to make sure they get like a good tanda. So a lot of times more seasoned dancers will prefer sitting out and just waiting and chatting instead of dancing just for the sake of dancing, you know?
If you like this conversation and want to listen the full episode, the full conversation, it's available at Elizabeta's channel. I'm going to put the link here in the description. I also selected another excerpt, very interesting topic, to share with you here on the channel. You can just click over there. And if you want to learn more about our activities here in New York City, about online courses, learn with us and come dance with us, I invite you to visit forronewyork.com. I hope to see you very soon, either there, here on the link, or on the full episode here in the description of this video. Bye-bye.